I am going to be tripling down on my Escoffier takes with a new argument. This is an all or nothing gamble and I'm going to see it through to the end. This is not even the video I'm supposed to be making right now. That 5.6 banner review is just never coming out, but you guys did this. Hello there, Flip here, and today I'm going to be talking about Escoffier once again, but this time we're going to be less theory crafty and more speculation and just general discussion on Escoffier. As in my last video on the chef, the most common sentiment and takeaway is that I was being short-sighted, which I agree. I just didn't talk about future prospects at all because I wasn't sure people wanted to have that discussed. But since so many of the comments on that previous video were about her future prospects, let's talk about why I think that's a very hard stance to argue for, honestly. But before we do that, as always, if at any points during the video you're entertained or informed, make sure to drop a like and even consider subscribing, as I talk on various topics regarding Genshin's meta and I'll try to keep you updated. Channel members, as always, thank you so much for the continued support, it means the world to me. And with that out of the way, let's begin. So I guess at the forefront, a lot of the sentiment I got from my Escoffier video is that most people do agree that with the current state of the meta, she isn't an issue, but it's just a future thing people are concerned about, which if that is your stance, fair enough, but I'll shortly discuss why I don't like that argument. And then the other thing people were talking about is the overloaded nature of her kit compared to Chiori and Emily. And right off the bat, who was calling Chiori good? Who was calling Emily good? If you go back to when the Chiori leaks started dropping, people were calling her a bad and unnecessary unit who was C1 bait. So I don't understand the comparison to Chiori when she's been one of the most negatively received characters in the game that people agreed didn't do enough. And as we've gone into Natlan, that has been more than proven with a character like Kachina who essentially just holds the scroll set, being a more favorite pick in all of scenarios, whilst being a free character. And then Shalonen came out, which did open up the wheelchair core, but I feel like a lot of people forget the reason why the wheelchair core was so good on Shalonen's release was due to the fact that it had one of the best Abyss blessings for defense skilling DPS, inflating the performance of the team by a lot. That's why it was so commonly used for speedruns during those Abyss cycles, but nowadays not really, and people have even more shifted away from Chiori teams. If anything, Chiori proves my point, because she's essentially only the damaging aspect of Escoffier, which isn't enough to make a character good, clearly. And then for Emily, the exact same things were said. Why are we trying to do revisionist history? Back in pre-release, people were even trying to debate whether or not she was Kenichi's best teammate, which we do know now is obviously true, but again, in pre-release, she was one of the most underestimated characters with the sentiment that she again doesn't do enough for a support in a niche. I do think Emily has fared a lot better than Chiori as she has less restrictions and more better team options, does more damage, and she's a part of one of the strongest teams in the game, being Kenichi's hypercarry cores. So when people are saying that Escoffier is Emily or Chiori that heals and debuffs, thank God! Thank you! Otherwise she would be in the same estranged position that Chiori and Emily to an extent is. You are literally proving my point that Escoffier had to be this strong, otherwise she would have been left to the wayside. And I'm going to reiterate what I said in my last video, that if Escoffier didn't have one aspect of her kit, whether that's the debuffing, the healing, or the damage, then she just wouldn't be a good unit. Now, there were so many people in the comment section upset that I didn't talk about Skirk. As we now have the pre-beta information on her kit, I am going to admit two things. One, that video was scripted like a week and a half ago before we got the pre-beta Skirk information. And two, I have not even read the pre-beta Skirk leaks in its entirety. I've just seen snippets of it in Discord and Twitter because I'm not hyped for Skirk at all, being completely honest. But even then, what do you want me to do? I am not Nostradamus. I cannot analyze or theorycraft off of thoughts and prayers. There is nothing to evaluate yet. And even if Skirk is strong and is like a Malvika tier DPS, does the game just end after Skirk releases? Is Hoyo never going to release another damage dealer again? Or make other characters for different reactions? Why is the assumption that Skirk will release and then Hoyoverse will only make Cryo and Hydra DPS that Escoffier uses for the next 2 years? No shade to this commenter, but I saw someone say that Escoffier is going to be a problem because she's going to be the best installed support for fucking Capitano, Skirk, the Saritsa, and Columbina. Columbina! We don't even know her element yet! Oh my god, not even that, but why is the assumption that these characters even are DPS in the first place? Furthermore, a word I haven't said since my English exams, Sneznaya isn't even the next region. It's not Cry, so there's a very high chance we don't see her for the next 2 years. In which, why would they release her best install support now instead of on her banner, like they did with both of their DPS Archons? What if the Saritsas for Melt teams? You have no fucking clue yet. You guys are not invincible. impossible. You cannot see the future. Relax. Why are we all prematurely inventing our own despair? And what makes even less sense to me about this whole discourse is that Hoyoverse loves abandoning team archetypes like gacha players' fathers. Yes, that is including you and me. We are all fatherless here. Going back to Emily, they released her right before the Pyro region, in which I made a video saying, oh, it's so obvious Emily is for all the Pyro and Dendro characters they're releasing in Natlin. Hoyoverse then decides to release 2 Pyro characters in version 5.0 and 1 Dendro character, in which Emily only really belongs to Kenichi's best team and not Malvika's. Well, I guess you use Malvika and Kenichi to it's not the point. Hoyoverse released Xianyan alongside Gaming, and then we all thought, wow, we're going to be getting more plunge characters. They then proceeded to not release a new plunge unit for over a year, and when they finally released Veressa, she doesn't even want Xianyan anymore. They released Farazan and Sumeru, and then the next flagship Anemo DPS uses other elements. Furina released, and we all thought they were going to create a healing meta. And then in the next patch, they make a healer that doesn't work with Furina, and then the next teamite healer they release is Siegewean. So Furina's most meta-relevant teams until Escoffier comes out have been single-target healers like Benna and Shilonen. Chiori released using Geoconstruct, so we thought we were getting more Geoconstructs in the future, and all they have released is Kitshina in that time span, who you don't even really use together. Do you guys remember Bond of Life? Do you guys remember Bloom reactions? I just don't understand this weird fear-mongering around the game being dominated by Freeze, and that all the future Cryo and Hydro characters are going to want Escoffier. I can almost guarantee that the next Cryo DPS they release after Skirk is not going to want Freeze or Mono Cryo teams with how Hoyoverse has been handling things recently. And if I'm wrong, that's just a bad guess, because at this point in time, no one knows anything. So can we stop definitively saying that Escoffier is going to be broken based off hopes and dreams, or whatever weird dark reality you've created where Freeze dominates the meta for the next 2 years? And the last thing I think I want to touch on before closing this video is the fact that people are talking about uses outside of Freeze for Escoffier, and how this is what is game breaking about her, and I disagree. So compared to other characters like Emily, Chiori, or even Chevreuse to an extent, Escoffier keeps her healing and damage, asterisk. The only thing she really loses is that her Reshred becomes weaker with the less Hydro and Cryo characters she has, which impacts her own damage and lessens her ability to debuff enemies for Cryo and Hydro teammates. And again, there are use cases for a character like this, as she can be played on double Cryo Forward Melt teams alongside Sitlali to enable consistent melts for your Pyro DPS. You can play her in Burn Melt teams if you want to see high Cryo numbers, and in general she can kind of act like a Cryo official that offers sustain. But if you do decide to play Escoffier outside of Freeze teams, then she's a side grade or downgrade to other options. It's nice that she has this flexibility, but it's not like Escoffier is a 4-star character you can get passively, or a standard character that you just happen to get. You have to pull for Escoffier, it's something you actively have to do. And if you're pulling for her to be a general support for your account, then you are just pulling a worse general support. Enjoy having a slightly better Rosaria, I don't fucking know. Again, it's nice that she can be played outside of Freeze and Hydro or Cryo DPS, as it gives more experimentation with her teams, but in terms of what it brings to the table for her meta relevance, it isn't really that high, nor does it contribute to her being broken if the teams are just inferior to others, compared to characters like Furina or Shilonen that are amazing generalists. If you gave everyone Shiori C1 right now so that she can always use her 2 tomatoes, no matter the circumstance, she would still not be a character that is widely used over other options. Also, who is spreading the lie that Escoffier is better than Emily and Kenichi teams? What are we doing? First of all, via my friend, I think, and fellow theorycrafter Hyper Webster on Discord, even if you give this team its theoretical due diligence and assume all the auras line up and you get all 5 cannon shots with Kenichi, it is still a worse team theoretically than using Emily. And in practice, we aren't currently sure how the auras line up, but there's a chance that Escoffier can extinguish the burning aura, which ruins Kenichi's ability to get 5 cannon shots off, in which case she's always going to be worse than Emily. So theoretically it's worse than using Emily, and in practice it might not even work that well. So the narrative that she's somehow comparable to Emily as an off-field DPS for Kenichi is not real. Anyways, I'm done ranting, finally. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment if you're going to be picking up Escoffier, as I would love to hear and want to miss every single comment. Channel members, as always, your support means the world to me. I love you all. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace.